Play.
This is Let Your Voice Be Heard right here on WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem.
Party got a party with Cardi. Party got the party with the party. Party with Barty. What up, people?
Hold on.
What
Can I
What
just
up?
say that was the most appropriate song to play for this show because 2017 was the year of Cardi B. Can we acknowledge that?
Yes.
Who
Can
are
we
you?
acknowledge that?
Party got a party with Cardi.
Can-
Offset cheated on Barty. Party with the Cardi.
Can we just acknowledge that this was all about Cardi B? All right, guys. Welcome to Let Your Voice Be Heard right here on WHCR.
90.3 FM.
The voice of Harlem.
Harlem.
Happy Sunday. Happy last Sunday of 2017.
Happy last day of this crappy year.
Yeah.
Hold on. But what was more crappier, 2017 or 2016?
2016 was pretty decent until November, so
At least Obama was president in 2016.
Exactly.
Like,
You could always make that
TBH.
argument.
Yeah.
You can always make that
I don't know.
argument.
Let me get back to you at the end of the show.
Right, yeah. Then we'll make that determination. Welcome to Let Your Voice Be Heard right here on WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem. This is the show where we talk about politics, social issues, foreign policy, and we do that all from a diverse millennial perspective.
Did you forget where we do it from? Because you paused for a second.
No, because I was like, did I say politics?
Selena
foreign
doesn't know where
issues,
we are.
And social. I wanted to make sure I went down that. Plus, we weren't here last week, too. So cut me some slack.
Never slack cutting. I'm a hater.
You really are. Well, all right, Joe Button. Should we call you that?
Oh, yeah. Call him Joe Budden. Ayy,
Anyway,
like that.
guys. So my name is Selena Hill. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Miss Selena Hill. And I'll spell Miss with an M-S.
Why do you spell it that way?
Because she's still not married.
No, because my marital
When you
status
getting
doesn't-
married, Selena?
I know, right? I just felt like a rush of anxiety when you said that. Like, I
sorry.
hear that from my family.
How about when
All
are
the
you
time.
getting
Oh
married,
my God!
Jaqi?
Don't even talk about anxiety. Let's table that conversation.
Jackie's too poor to get married.
Yes.
guys.
Yeah. Right.
And
Thank
by
you, Stanley.
poor, we mean she's not poor.
All right. Anyway, hi.
Jaqi, introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hey, it's Jaqi. I am getting married in 2018, so that will be one nice thing.
Well, we know one nice thing will happen that year.
Yeah,
next
hopefully
year.
there will be more. But looking back at this year, I'm not super hopeful. But you can follow me on Twitter or on Instagram at Jaqi Cohen. That's JaqiCohen.
Yay. And I am Ilyssa Fuchs. I am your legal correspondent. And all around pain in the butt. Basically.
Correct. Ding, ding, ding.
But anyways, you can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Ilyssa Fuchs. That's Ilyssa with an ILYSSA. FUCHS. Or you can follow me on Twitter, also Ilyssa Fuchs, or it's at Ilyssa Fuchs. Or you can leave a comment on the fan page, which is at Poll Preposterous on Twitter.
Or
Politically Preposterous on Facebook. And we're broadcasting right now on Facebook Live in multiple different places from the Let Your Voice Be Heard Facebook page, but also on Politically Preposterous, on everybody's personal pages. And we're going to try and get it up on the Donald Trump is not my president page as well.
hold on. Is it my turn to go?
I don't know.
Unfortunately.
We don't like you.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, boy, was
Just because this is the year of the woman, remember?
Yeah, the woman listens to Stanley year. Yeah, correct. What's
Gross.
shaking? WHCR was propping Facebook Live. I'm listening to too much Bodega Boys.
Yeah,
I
for
love them.
real. You
These
are
last
becoming
two
them.
episodes, they have really been back in a good
Yeah.
flow, and I
Oh,
appreciate that.
Yeah,
But anyways, guys, it is your favorite engineer on the PC ones and twos. Why am I your favorite engineer on the PC ones and twos? Because I'm the only engineer on the PC ones and twos. And when Selena touches the PC ones and twos, they turn into 3 and 4s. And if you want to talk to me, you have plenty of ways to do that. You can do that. Look at me. Look at me when I'm talking to you, Facebook Live. You can do that on Twitter at Stan Fritz. You can do it on Instagram at Stan Fritz. You can do it on Facebook at Stanley Fritz, where I start race wars all of the time. And if you're feeling real spicy, Snapchat, Dark Skin Swindle, where I post about once every 75 weeks. You can always talk to me there, guys. Always.
All right. Thank you, Stanley,
That
for
was
that
a great-
grand
whatever
slam,
that was.
that grand slam introduction, guys. So we have a great show lined up. It is the last show, as I mentioned a few moments ago. So instead of giving, our regular recaps that we do, we're actually going to be talking about in categories. So we'll be talking about the best, the worst, and the petty of 2017, and saying which moments stood out the most.
Say that with more excitement, Selena.
What?
You know you like petty.
Yeah, I don't
all
sound
like
excited.
petty.
Hold on, do I not sound
Selena
excited
is
right now?
sage. Say people don't get petty.
You're right.
Unless you at church. Then they real petty. Miss Trislin, how you doing today? I ain't seen you here in a while.
I once saw this church sign and it said, "Hello, we are open between Christmas and Easter." Which is like the snarkiest church sign ever. It's like, hey, by the way, we're here. You can come other times, when it's not Christmas or Easter.
I can't even breathe right now. That was hilarious.
You're doing a pretty good job.
That was a church sign in Virginia.
Awesome. I love it. So, all right, guys. So, yeah, we're going to be talking about the best, the worst, and the petty, okay, of 2017. We'll actually be giving some things an award, like the Token Award. Who deserves that?
Maybe I'll win it this year.
Yes.
You will never win the Token Award. You are way too woke for that.
The way that white people love it when I call black people Uncle Toms, it's maybe consider stopping calling black people Uncle Tom.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like,
Stanley.
White people tag me in the post like, hey, Stanley, who's this person?
God.
I'm like, all right.
Yes.
Yeah, so of
Calm
course.
down, Rhett.
So if you guys want to let your voice be heard, you can hit us up and leave a comment on our Facebook Live. That's facebook.com/letyourvoicebeheard. You can also tweet us at beheard_radio. You can also just call in at 212-650-6903. Yeah, so we definitely want to hear from you guys. We have a jam-packed show. We're talking about the best, the worst, and the petty of 2017, the moments and the people.
But
Stay
for
tuned.
now, pipe it up.
But I'm piped up. See that boy right up? He piped up. See that girl right up? She piped up. Pipe it up. Pipe it up.
We are back on Let Your Voice Be Heard on 90.3 FM WHCR, the voice of Harlem, beloved.
Shout out to Marilyn, who's watching us via live stream.
She's probably not watching. It's probably on mute.
Whatever. Hey, as long as you are watching and we get the stats, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
Yeah, so welcome back to the show. Again, my name is Selena Hill. I'm here with Stanley Fritz, Ilyssa Fuchs, Jaqi Cohen. Of course, it was only right for us to all come together for the last show of 2017.
Which is harder than you could imagine because we're all
Seriously,
extremely busy.
It really is.
Like,
Yeah,
Jaqi was
Jesus.
usually in Paris. Stanley's
I'm usually in
sleeping.
Paris. Yeah, right. That's exactly
It's
where I
like
usually am.
Selena's usually on workcation.
Yeah, with Rihanna
With
and
Rihanna.
Barbados.
In Barbados.
The only one who actually goes on a workcation, which is not a cation, is Stanley. Well, actually,
and
sometimes
Jaqi.
Jaqi.
Oh,
No, I'm just joking.
Just wait till 2018.
Selena did do some work when she was down there.
Yeah, I did.
She interviewed that woman. She got it while she was wearing a bikini.
Seriously. Anyway,
Jack and I
guys.
get to be in Albany from January to April.
Yeah,
You know,
the nicest time to be in Albany.
I don't ever get to travel for work because all my work is right here in New York City.
You could just
Count
travel to the
your
courthouse.
blessings.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
You get to travel to the Bronx.
Yeah, exactly. Guys, you want to go on vacation in the Bronx?
No.
It's the hottest club.
That's right.
You guys remember old SNL
They got
episodes?
some good hookah lounges to Soundview.
But anyway, before we move into 2018, we should probably take a look at what
thought you were
happened
gonna
in 2017.
And on that segue, thank you, Jaqi, I am going to start. All right, guys, so 2017 has been one heck of a year. President Donald Trump ushered in an era of cultural division and political instability in Washington that pretty much left our heads spinning. Almost on a daily basis, we were grieved with disheartening news about the changes he embraced and what this meant for the state of our country, our democracy, and our world. From Trump's offensive tweets to the Russia investigation to the tax cut to the attack on journalists, science, immigrants, Muslims, and LGBT rights, 2017 was pretty much unbelievable. It was the year that coined the term alternative facts. We saw a new rise in the alt-right, a number of shakeups in the White House, a slew of natural disasters, and we reluctantly welcomed in a new conservative Supreme Court judge. However, despite Trump's efforts to repeal and replace Obamacare, divide our nation, spread fake news, and taunt Kim Jong-un into a nuclear war, 2017 was also marked as the year of resistance.
What, resistant depression? God damn.
Seriously. Depression and oppression. Seriously. So, from the Women's March to Take a Knee to the Muslim ban protests and Me Too, activists, organizers, and concerned Americans took their outrage against this administration and societal ills to the streets to let their voices be heard. On today's show, which is, again, the last time we will record Let Your Voice Be Heard in the year 2017.
Is it?
Yes, we will do things a little differently. Instead of a regular smegular, shout out to Cardi B because it's definitely Cardi season. Instead of a regular smegular recap of the year, we're going to determine who and what deserves to be recognized or even given an award for being either the worst, best, or pettiest moment or person of 2017 based on a set list of nominees. Starting with the movement of the year. And of course, guys, if you want to chime in, feel free to call us up at
212-650-6903.
And you can tweet us at
Be Heard
Radio.
And you can hit us up on Facebook.
Live.
Got
All
it,
right, guys.
No, but we definitely want to hear your input because while we have a list of things that we, like of superlatives and awards, this is by no means a conclusive list, and we want to hear from you. What resonated with you this year? What do you think fits into these categories that we're going to discuss? Yeah.
So, movement. What was the movement of the year for you? Which social movement or moment had the biggest impact in 2017? So I have a few listed here. Was it the Women's March? Take a Knee. The Charlottesville protests.
Wait, what?
Me Too.
The Charlottesville protest?
Well, the
That was
counter.
a movement.
counter.
Oh.
No, that was a moment. That
All
was
right.
a moment or a movement, and it had a huge impact in 2017. The Muslim ban protests or the DACA protests. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Alyssa.
So I'm going to go with the Women's March, which sort of also ties into Me Too, because that was the catalyst, as far as I'm concerned, for all of the rest of the protests that happened. And that's not to say that those other protests would not have happened if it wasn't for the Women's March. I think they would have. But I think that because there was such a large, the Women's March was the largest protest ever. In fact, the numbers on it were astonishing. It topped any previous march on Washington that had ever happened. And not only did those numbers in Washington top out at the highest ever, there was a lot of spin-off movements that came out of the Women's March. And number three, the Women's March was not just in Washington. It was all over the country and all over the world. So for that reason, I say the Women's March, which, of course, as I also mentioned, sort of led into the Me Too campaign. A lot of these other protests, and just one more that I don't see on the list that I'll mention, which is the people that were protesting at the Capitol building against the repeal of the ACA, which eventually they won, and the ACA was not repealed. So that's why I think the Women's March is the most important movement and moment of the year.
Yeah, so, and I just want to mention, guys, if something is not being listed, feel free to make a wild card choice. Harold Broker Jr. agrees with you, Alyssa.
Okay.
Booker, thank you. He just left a comment on our Facebook Live saying the Women's March was the movement of the year, and they had the best costumes. You're right. They had can we say the P word hats? I don't know if you can say it. Yeah, they had the Punani hats. So thank you so much, Harold.
I called it the Pussycat hat.
The Cootie Cat hat?
You just gave me a heart attack.
Anyway.
And another, hold on, let me just mention,
Yeah.
Shout out to Emily Ann, who says, Jaqi, did you get Stanley that sweatshirt?
I did not get Stanley that sweatshirt, but Stanley and I bought matching Hanukkah sweatshirts that say it's lit at the same
I want a
time.
Hanukkah sweatshirt.
You're not Jewish enough.
Yeah, clearly. Stanley and I have matching Hanukkah sweatshirts.
And I wanted a Kwanzaa one.
But yes, Kwanzaa is not a real thing.
Stanley! Okay.
Anyway, so I would tend to agree with Alyssa that the Women's March was that catalyst moment where we saw, it was right in January, it kicked off the year of resistance. But to just sort of differentiate a little bit, I would say the Muslim ban protest, which happened, the first round of them happened a week after the Women's March, right? Or 2 weeks after? Right around the same time. Yeah. So it was on the heels of the Women's March. What I thought was so amazing about that was, a lot of people became sort of politically active and aware for the first time during the Women's March. Many people who have never attended a protest ever showed out. It was the largest protest in history. But there was a lot of skepticism afterwards that I heard from people saying, people are just showing up, but where are they going to be when we really need them? And then Trump tried to put into effect this ban, and people showed up in huge numbers, probably much bigger than there would have been without the Women's March prior, because they realized, we can turn out in huge numbers. We can make a change and have a voice. And so people showed up. And I think that moment proved that, in this year of resistance, people are going to continue to show up. It's not going to be a flash in the pan rally and that's it. And I really felt that during the Muslim ban protests that people were serious about resisting this administration.
I'm going to go with the Women's March. And it was a close one for me between the Muslim ban protests and the Women's March, but I picked the Women's March because of what it means. My philosophy for 2017, the biggest lesson I learned was listen to women. If we listened to women, Trump wouldn't be president right now. If we listened to the woman, Hillary Clinton, she'd be our president right now, and we'd be in much better shape. But then also the Women's March was led by 3 women of color, brilliant women of color: Carmen Perez, Linda Sarsour, Tamika Mallory, and of course there was Bob Bland, who's not a woman of color, but is a strong ally who was one of those people really involved with the Women's March. And the amount of people that they mobilized and inspired and keep moving now, it's amazing. It's almost a year later, and we're still talking about them.
Right. And I think what's important is that the reason why the Women's March was such a catalyst was, the women, the incredible women that you just mentioned, have been involved in all of these movements, right? It's the immigration issues are women's issues, and Muslim bans are women's issues, right?
Absolutely.
Like, these are all women's issues. And so I think that was realized during the Women's March.
I mean, it was Hillary Clinton who said women's rights are human rights and human rights are women's rights, right? But I also say that the Women's March, because it was the first rally, there was a lot of places where you could sign up for different things, for organizing. And those sign-up lists, there's also what generated some of the things that happened later on in mobilizing people to the airports, to the Capitol building, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Selena?
Great point. So, guys, my answer to the moment of the year, I'm actually going to go against the grain. I strongly believe it was the Charlottesville protests. Here's the reason why. That moment redefined our nation, and it unmasked what America really is: racist and anti-Semitic. And honestly, I felt like even though that protest was horrible and it led to the death of a peaceful protester, and then we had Donald Trump who said there were good people on both sides.
Very fine people.
It started a conversation that we are continuing to have, a conversation that people of color especially always felt and knew existed, but it took that march for the rest of America to really wake up. And I remember something that really resonated with me when we did a show after the Charlottesville protests, and Jaqi said, like, that was the moment in which, correct me if I'm wrong, Jaqi, in which your grandmother who voted for, unless a family member voted for Trump,
I think
was like, finally, you said it. You said it on air that they finally woke up and was like, this is, he's promoting anti-Semitism. It's promoting white supremacy.
Right.
Like, so for me, and because that conversation has continued to be had, it was the biggest impact in 2017.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I felt a huge sort of blowback from that moment, right, where I was witnessing in 2017 America people marching through the streets with Nazi flags, which is something like as a Jew, I've learned a lot about my history. I've learned about anti-Semitism. I've experienced it in ways, in small acts throughout my life, or by through backhanded comments, but I've never seen it on full display in my own country. And I was in Charlottesville a few weeks after that rally. And it is a city that, tries to be this, or prides itself on being this sort of liberal city. And obviously it was picked because of its connection to UVA and sort of being this liberal hub, and the protesters there wanted to disrupt that. But it was wild to see it sort of afterwards, this, typical place in America. It could have happened, that protest could have happened anywhere.
I mean, listen, I think it was definitely a big moment, so I don't disagree with you there. But I did want to give you some comments that we're getting from Facebook Live. Karis Love says, specifically, listen to black women. 97% of them voted for Hillary Clinton. That's true, and I know we're going to talk more about black women and voting later on when we talk about the biggest political upset of the year. And Patrice Fuchs, who actually is my aunt, says the Women's March because it was the impetus for inspiring and motivating so many women to run for office, which I think is a great point. Also, we will talk about later on when we talk about the blue wave. Selena?
Thank you, Ilyssa, and thank you so much, guys, for chiming in. We are going to move to category 2, so get ready to type in your answers. Number 2, who got the most trash? What person, place, or thing received the most backlash this year and deserves the award for getting the most trash? Stanley.
Damn. Oh, man. All right, so
Let me just let everyone know what our nominees are. And of course, you can add a wild card. Was it the media, a.k.a. fake news, Colin Kaepernick, or North Korea? Stanley.
I have two answers.
Sure.
And I think you guys are not going to like it, but I'm going
Stanley, you have to pick one.
Hillary Clinton and pizza.
Pizza.
Because Pizzagate is still going on. They just accused Chrissy Teigen.
That's not pizza. It's like, that is Hillary Clinton, really.
Yes.
No, Hillary Clinton.
But like, seriously, Pizzagate is still happening. Go on Twitter. Chrissy Teigen just posted about people saying she's abusing her child with pizza. But anyways, Hillary Clinton, she lost the election to the equivalent of a bag of dog crap with eyeballs. And even after all this time, he is still bringing her name out of his mouth. This guy is under investigation for possibly collusion with an enemy country. And she's under investigation by Congress. And people are still covering her in the news, talking about how trash she is. When she doesn't say something, she gets in trouble for not talking. When she says something, they tell her to shut up. When she writes a book explaining what happened and says that, like, I messed up, they say she didn't say it enough. Like, no matter what she does, she has been trashed throughout the whole year.
Stanley, great answer. I want to shout out Bianca Marley, who just started watching us on Facebook Live. Ilyssa, you're up next. Who got the most trash?
I think that's a really good, a really good answer because, at the end of the day, people may disagree with Hillary's politics and her policies, but that doesn't mean she should get trashed personally all the time. She's probably the most qualified person to ever run for president, even if you disagree with her policies. So I would agree with that. But at the same time, I also want to go with the media. I did several quickies on this throughout the year that you can totally go back and listen to and talked about the freedom of the press and why it's so important that, we have a free press in this country and the importance of the First Amendment. And Donald Trump spent so much time on Twitter trashing the free press, knocking them down, trying to delegitimize them. And I think that has the biggest effect on our democracy. I mean, listen, Colin Kaepernick got trashed. I don't disagree with that. And not even for good reason, for him exercising his First Amendment rights. But at the end of the day, it's the media and it's journalists who have the ability to expose things in this country. And the whole reason why the founders set up this nation so that we would have a free press is so that our leaders, our politicians would not be able just to say and do whatever they want and be in their own propaganda feedback loop. And so these constant attacks on the press, really denigrate our democracy. And so I'm going to go with, Donald Trump's trashing of the free press is the person or the entity that got trashed the most this year. Jackie?
Well, before we go to Jackie, we do have another comment. Harold Booker Jr. says, Colin Kaepernick gave up his career for a movement that was twisted to be about the flag. So it sounds like Harold's going with Colin. Jackie, very interested to know who you're going with.
I mean, I would say the media, too. I think that exactly what Ilyssa said, that there's been a very dangerous attack that really delegitimizes a core component of our democracy. When the media is delegitimized, people then turn to, other alternatives to get their news, some of which maybe isn't super credible. So that is really scary to me. I think also Muslims and immigrants in this country by our government.
That's a great answer.
I think that they have been really demonized by our government and have been put in a place of actual violence and danger. And, I think that they have suffered the most, really suffered from this administration.
So you're saying your answer is Muslims and immigrants?
Yeah.
Okay, great answer there. Guys, before I give my answer, because it could be a little lengthy, are we going on break? Sure. Okay, great. So we're going to go on break. I'm going to come back and give you the answer to who I think got the most trash this year in 2017. Don't go anywhere, guys. We have a lot more awards and superlatives to give away. This is Let Your Voice Be Heard.
Turn my vocal up. That's how you feel, Emery? Turn my vocal up.
You should watch your man and should watch your mouth. Yo, Nikki was throwing subs with that bar.
She did. She threw it at Barty.
Yes. You should watch your man because Offset was cheating on you with a big body gal.
I mean, listen, I know they have drama, but I feel like the two of them on a track together would be dope if they could get over whatever
They've
the
been
drama
on plenty
is.
of tracks together.
No, like now, because they have beef recently,
They're
right?
on this track together after that happened.
Oh, okay.
Well, the thing is, Nikki broke it down and she did not know Cardi B was going to be on the track.
Right, they didn't record it together.
So she recorded a verse dissing Cardi B, and then Cardi B was placed on the track. Let's get our Cardi facts right.
Anyways.
Roses are red.
They
don't care.
They should get it together because they should do a track where they're not dissing each other.
Speaking of people that need to get things together, 2017 was a big mess of a year. Guys, we're doing things a little different here on Let Your Voice Be Heard. We're actually giving away superlatives, awards for the biggest, the best, the worst, and the pettiest moments and people of 2017.
Petty.
Now, thank you for that ad-lib. Before we went on break, the question was who got the most trashed? And Emily, excuse me, she left a comment on Facebook. Emily Ann says, the media. I agree. Fascism gains power when more and more people don't trust the media. Bianca Marley says, the people for allowing the guy to be commander-in-chief via the electoral vote, which was most likely driven by the media. So her answer is the people and the media. My answer is definitely the media. The reason why President Donald Trump has waged a relentless campaign to discredit journalists in the U.S., often using rhetoric that would potentially incite his followers to violence. Now, this is dangerous because journalists put their lives on the line in order to hold corrupt politicians like Donald Trump accountable. His rhetoric only makes our jobs harder. Meanwhile, 42 journalists and four media workers were killed this year, while a record 262 journalists were imprisoned around the world. On top of that, Mexico reached an historic high in journalists killed this year, and it's the country that leads the world in journalists killed the most in a non-conflict zone. So Donald Trump wasn't making things better. Moving on, number 3, get ready to type in your answers. I want to know who was the biggest trash politician of 2017. Outside of Donald Trump, which political figure or politician has been the most dangerous in 2017? Jaqi, you have not answered a question first, so I'm going to you first. Biggest trash politician.
So
I'm sorry. The nominees. I'm so sorry. The nominees. Roy Moore, Steve Bannon, and the Republican Party. And if you have a wild card choice,
I do. I'm going to say Benjamin Netanyahu, who I think was the trash politician of 2016 as well, who totally enables the occupation of Palestinian territories in Israel-Palestine, who's under investigation this year. I mean, this isn't the first time he's been under investigation for corruption, but is under investigation currently for taking bribes. And aside from just being like a right-wing lunatic who is like Trump, but folks have said he's like Trump but smart. He has like totally enabled Trump to move forward in announcing that the U.S. would recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, which obviously we've talked about previously on the show, could have really, really negative impact to the people that live in Israel-Palestine.
I'm also going to go with somebody not on this list because as far as I'm concerned, Roy Moore lost and has no power, and Steve Bannon continues to lose and is hopefully losing his power. The Republican Party as a whole is pretty broad, so I'm going to go with Paul Ryan because Paul Ryan is the guy who was like never Trump and was like against all these things, but now he like, for lack of a better term, latched onto Trump's what and is sucking it really hard, and now he just like is using that in order to try and get all of his priorities done that hurt the rest of us, including poor people.
It's amazing he doesn't have lockjaw yet.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm definitely going to go with Paul Ryan because also another reason he's now saying that because we have this huge deficit, that they just created with the tax bill, where they gave all these handouts to the rich people, that now we have to cut Social Security, Medicare, and other quote-unquote entitlements, which are not entitlements because we've been paying into them. That's a conversation we're going to have in the new year, so I won't get ahead of ourselves. But I'm going to go with Paul Ryan is the most trash politician outside of Donald Trump.
On a long list of garbage white people that exist, and there's a long list of garbage white people, Paul Ryan is in the top tier of those garbage white people, even going above the garbage white people that voted for the child molester, alleged child molester, who molested children. But anyways, guys, allegedly. He did it. But anyways, guys, if I had to give a vote for the trashiest politician, I would vote for Mitch McConnell. Here is why. Mitch McConnell stopped President Obama's Supreme Court pick from even having a hearing. And then when they found out that Russia may have been getting involved in the election, and the Obama administration and the FBI went to the Republican Party to say, listen, this is information American people should know, I don't want to make it seem partisan, so let's come together and announce this. Mitch McConnell told President Obama, and I quote, "If you do this, I will come out publicly and say you are trying to tilt the election in the favor of Hillary Clinton." And that is the reason that the Obama administration was not more aggressive with putting out information about Russia's interference with the election before the actual election day. Besides those things, Mitch McConnell is also the same garbage white person that said that it was his goal to make sure that President Obama was a one-term president. He's the same garbage white person whose wife has magically got a job under the Trump administration. And oh, by the way, he's a garbage white person among a bevy of garbage white people.
Well, thank you guys so much for your answers. I'm going to just speed things along, let you guys know my answer to the biggest trash politicians goes to the Republican Party because they have enabled a oppressive regime, Donald Trump, his administration, to move forward in a lot of things that hurt the American people. Their latest victory, legislative victory, was actually the tax reform bill. They signed it. They didn't even do a good job in selling it, and now basically we're all going to pay the consequences while in return, the biggest corporations get permanent tax cuts.
It's one of the biggest redistributions of wealth in American history.
I'll just give you two comments we're getting. Patrice Fuchs says Paul Ryan, and Lindsey Graham too, and Mitch, and Bianca Marley says Betsy DeFunk, although I think she means DeVos.
Okay, now, number 4. Jaqi is going to read off the fourth category as well as the nominees.
So,
Jaqi?
Number 4, the worst moment in science for 2017. Our nominees are A, dismantling of the EPA by Trump. B, Trump's response to the Puerto Rico disaster due to the hurricane. C, pulling out of the Paris Climate Accords. And D, Trump's climate change tweet that happened this week. What did he say? Alyssa, you saw it.
He said, "It's so cold, so there must be no global warming."
Yeah, right,
essentially.
right. So what do you all think? What were your...
I gotta say, it's this dismantling of the Environmental Protection Agency, and a lot of people have not really been paying attention to this, and the media has covered it, but it hasn't broken light. But this is going to have the longest lasting effects. And just within the first 3 months of the Trump administration, they reversed laws that stopped companies from pouring coal ashes into the water. They reversed laws that required companies to not pollute the air and communities, and they have lessened laws that were supposed to look out for people from being poisoned by the institutions in their own communities. People are going to die because of some of the policies that the Trump administration has rolled back, and they'll be suffocating in their own houses and not know why.
Right. I mean, listen, I agree with you because at the end of the day, that's the bigger picture issue. All the other things that happen, like all the other things that are on that list, for example, like Trump's tweet, that sort of plays into the dismantling of the EPA because, he doesn't believe in climate change. So he hired somebody who's been literally fighting against the EPA. You look at the response to Puerto Rico, part of that has to do with, the fact that they've been dismantling all these agencies, and not just the EPA, but also organizations like FEMA. And, just in general, all these bad natural disasters that we've had, all these hurricanes. And, this was the season where we had all these huge monster hurricanes, one right after the other. And that is directly connected to climate change. And one of the things that the EPA is supposed to be doing is protecting the environment and protecting, the people who live in the United States. And in order to prevent some of these natural disasters from happening, we have to have real serious climate change policy. And pulling out of the Paris Climate Accords is also related to the dismantling of the EPA. So I think they all go back to that one thing.
Right.
Selena?
Yeah, no, guys, I 100% agree with you guys, but I would just say the thing that I thought was most heart-wrenching was Trump's response to the Puerto Rico disaster, because it really, it combined negligence and ignorance with also racism, because if you ask me, the reason why Puerto Rico is in so much debt and it's this foreign forgotten territory is because they're brown people. They're people that speak another language, and we're trying to build a wall to prevent all Hispanic and Latino people from coming into this country. And I think that it just sort of circumvented into this disaster and how Donald Trump handled it. I think that, him going to Puerto Rico days afterward and shooting pretending to shoot basketballs at some of the
right. Like it was a game. He was handing out goods and donations, and he was like tossing them to people as if they were basketballs and laughing. And he was like, "Oh, it was a great time in Puerto Rico."
Right. And the fact that he didn't even go to the most devastated areas, he was going to the areas that were like upper middle class, the people that actually still had cell phone service. Like, he totally mishandled that. And it just, again, it was reflective of how our country treats this island. We've colonized them. We've never really cared about them, and we still don't care now. So that's my answer for that.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I don't think that there's anything that I could add that is more conclusive than what you all just said. I think that the dismantling of the EPA is huge, but I also agree with Selena that his response to these, and the response from a lot of people on the right to these natural disasters that we've seen this year, whether hurricanes or large-scale wildfires, have been, pray for this community, instead of maybe we should look at the cause of these problems and see the correlation between climate change and these natural disasters and do something to stop it. Just praying is not enough. You need to act. Definitely.
So Bianca Marley has chimed in. Her answer to the question is the EPA. And I also want to just give a shout out to Patricia Fuchs, who agreed with Stanley's previous answer about Mitch McConnell. Guys, so before we go into break, I just want to let everyone know that we have a lot of more superlatives and awards to give out. But I will say 2017, it was a year of a lot of catastrophic events. There was a lot of bad, but there still was a lot of good. There was still resistance, and we still fought back every step of the way. How? We let our voices be heard. We tweeted about it. We protested. We came out in droves. We signed petitions, and the results were, pretty impactful. We'll talk about that blue wave that hit the country in November. We'll talk about, recent elections of like the first transgender elected official. We're going to talk about all that stuff later on in the show. We still have a lot more show to go. We're going to give out the Russiagate Award, the Token Award, and a lot more. So stay tuned. This is Let Your Voice Be Heard.
Hey, yo, I'ma explain why you probably never.
We are back on Let Your Voice Be Heard on 90.3 FM WHCR, the voice of Harlem. If you are just tuning in, this is Stanley Fritz. I'm here with Jaqi Cohen, who got me my secret holiday gift a month late.
What was it?
Selena Hill and Ilyssa Fuchs. I don't care. I'm just making fun of you.
Oh,
Yes,
stuff that
yes.
Stanley loves.
Yes.
I got you books.
Yeah,
you got him books.
Well, Stanley loves books, and that's like the only thing you ever want. I feel
Seriously.
like, so
1,000% true.
Yeah.
So, guys, if you are just tuning in, we were having a conversation earlier where we were giving out awards for the moments of 2017. We talked about the biggest movement of the year. We talked about who got trashed the most. We talked about the worst or trashiest politicians. And, of course, we talked about some of the lowest moments in science. Now, before we go on to the rest of our awards, we want to take a quick jump in the opposite direction and talk about the news roundup. It is our moment where we talk about things that make us laugh, cry, curse, flip tables, or maybe even just walk slowly down the street. And I want to take this moment to start it off with some really bad news and some thoughts on the matter. So, as most of you guys know, we lost a titan, a warrior in the movement earlier this week. Erica Garner passed away from a heart attack. She was only 27 years old. Erica Garner is the daughter of Eric Garner, an African-American man who was murdered by the NYPD on pretty much live on the internet for the world to see. And despite everyone seeing that a cop choked him to death, that cop is not only free, he's still getting paid by the NYPD. Erica, after her father's death, almost every single week would go back to the same place that he died and do die-ins. Every single week, whether there was press there, whether there wasn't, whether there was 1 million people there, whether there were 2 people there, she was always doing that. And even years after her father passed away, and Officer Pantaleo, who deserves to be in prison, was still getting paid and getting paid 6 figures by the NYPD, she was not only fighting for justice for her dad, but she was fighting for justice for others. I had a chance to get to know Erica a little bit, and she is someone who was passionate. She really cared about these issues. She wanted to see us free. She wanted to see justice, not just for her dad, but all those other people. And I remember one of the things I really admired about her was her just fierceness and ability to call out Bill de Blasio, who, as you guys know, is a mayor of New York City and someone who calls himself a progressive champion. And she called him out and said, no, you don't, because you protect cops that kill people. And she never bit her teeth about that. And you know what? She was also one of the first people to support Bernie Sanders. So we lose someone who was such a pillar to the movement, but just overall a wonderful human being. So I'm sending my condolences to her friends and her family. And just, please make sure, you tell your people you love them.
Yeah, no, I would just add on, I was heartbroken when I found out that she had a heart attack that led to her being in a coma, and she was pretty much brain dead the day before Christmas.
No. That's the heart attack happened, but then they didn't want to know that happened.
And then she went into a coma. So, I'm sorry, Stanley, she had an asthma attack, then she had a heart attack.
She passed away. She had a heart attack, and that's what killed her.
Listen, I just will say matter. The other thing I wanted to add is that she, at least the last thing I heard, the family is saying no direct donations to the family. They're asking to donate money to the causes that she supported and also to the foster care system. She was raised by a foster mother, and they said that she was really big on making sure that the foster care system is funded and that foster kids are taken care of. So there's a big push to make sure that money is not donated specifically to her family, at least for right now, and to donate that money to the causes she supported and to the foster, making sure that children in foster care get the care that they need.
Yeah, and she was 27, 2 children. It's definitely really hard, especially to lose someone so, deep in the movement. Just to switch gears a little bit, for the last few days, there have been protests in Iran that President Donald Trump has also been he's actually been supporting. So a number of protesters are rebelling against the government in Iran. And Donald Trump basically tweeted that if Iran was to do anything that abused human rights, the U.S. is watching. And also he said that he's in full support of the Iran protests. Well, and I just want to say that, it's a stark contrast to how President Barack Obama handled the situation when there were protests.
That seems to be the theme of this administration.
It's pretty much. So,
it's also a stark contrast.
Hold on. So Barack Obama, when he was president, he was not quick to make a comment or to support the protesters because in fear that they would be labeled as pro-American, which would just it would just antagonize the protests and the conflict that is going on. Donald Trump, of course, takes the opposite approach and puts people in danger. Ilyssa?
What I was going to say is it's also in stark contrast to the way he acts to protests here in America. It's on some level, he's tweeting that there should be these protests in Iran, which is problematic for the reasons you pointed out. But at the same time, anytime he tweets that the NFL should fine and fire people for engaging in peaceful protests in terms of kneeling during the national anthem, which, by the way, is not to protest the flag. We should clarify because we sort of skirted this. But Colin Kaepernick started kneeling to protest systemic injustices in the criminal justice system and the killing and, injuring of people of color by the police department with impunity. And somehow or another that got turned into a protest against the flag, which it was not. So I just wanted to point that out because we sort of skirted that earlier in the show. And we may actually get back to that. But, it's just sort of perplexing that Donald Trump supports quote unquote protest in other countries, but not here in his own country when it's against him.
When he's the target,
he's
exactly. Not for it, right? He sees no value in it. It doesn't serve him, so he doesn't approve. Unsurprisingly,
pretty much. Stanley?
No, I haven't heard much about this Iran thing. I really worked to unplug from politics while I've been on vacation.
Yeah, same.
I did want to bring up the interview that Donald Trump did with New York Times. The New York Times pretty much just let him babble on and just say all kinds of stupid things. And I guess their goal was to show that he was stupid and unhinged. And if that was their goal, I guess they succeeded. But a lot of people have pushed back against them because they said that Donald Trump was saying all these lies, which he was. He claimed that he and Obama had the same approval rating at the end of their first terms. He claimed that Democrats don't think that he's colluding with Russia. He claims that there's been no evidence to show he's colluding with Russia. And people feel like the New York Times reporters just are not pushing back and they weren't questioning him. And the New York Times reporters in defense said, well, the best way to deal with him is to let him talk, because if you interrupt him or correct him, he'll get mad and walk away. Did you guys hear about this? What do you think?
No, of course. Like, that New York Times interview was epic. First of all, Donald Trump, instead of giving an end-of-the-year press conference like every other president, he decides he's not going to do that. And instead, while he was at Mar-a-Lago, he was at lunch with, like, this New York Times reporter, and it was an impromptu interview. So like he apparently
without his staff,
right? Without his staff, without
you
any
mean his
aides,
babysitters,
which he needs. And honestly, I agree, because back in a few months ago, Donald Trump was doing an interview with, I think, someone from CBS. And once that reporter started like pushing back even slightly, he walked out of the room and he was like, interview over. So kudos to that New York Times reporter that got Donald Trump to just basically tell us exactly what he feels and what he's thinking and what he's planning for 2018 unhinged.
I mean, listen, like, I get where the people are coming from who are criticizing it, say they should have pushed back on him. But at the same time, like Selena sort of points out, you're dealing with a guy who you literally have to treat with kid gloves in order to let him say anything. And sometimes when he just starts rambling and ranting, he just makes himself look so stupid that it's so easy for the New York Times to debunk it or fact check it in a later article. Yeah. It's a newspaper. It's not a live TV interview. So I would say, like, in a live TV interview, yeah, you might want to push back against him, because then if he like throws a tantrum and walks out of the room on live TV, you are winning, period. But if you're doing like an interview that's going to be published in print, there's no use, in my point, in pushing back on him right in the middle of the interview and having him walk out of the room and getting nowhere. I think it's better to like let him rant and ramble, publish the craziness things that he says, and then publish fact-checking articles that are be like, okay, we published this thing. This is some of the things that Donald Trump said. And at the end of the article, it's like, here's a link to us fact-checking some of the things that he said, and just link it so that your readers know that like you are debunking it,
right?
Versus doing it right there on the spot and having him walk out and then like your interview is over. Like that doesn't make sense.
I want to have access to all the crazy things in his like stream of consciousness. I want to hear all of it. So for those exact reasons. But another thing that he said this week that was really funny to me was that on Christmas Eve he tweeted, "People are proud to be saying Merry Christmas again. I am proud to have led the charge against the assault of our cherished and beautiful phrase, Merry Christmas," in all caps. So Donald Trump has said that the war on Christmas is over, that he takes full credit in restoring, like,
there's never any war on Christmas.
Was this ever really an issue? Like, no. Is it such a big deal to say Happy Holidays? His own daughter, who's a Jew, will like tweet Happy Holidays, and
Jew is relative.
She converted. She did an Orthodox conversion. She is Jewish, but in the eyes of the Orthodox rabbis, right? And she has a Jewish husband. She tweeted out Happy Holidays, and he's so proud of himself for defeating this war on Christmas.
I mean, he acts like Barack Obama never said Merry Christmas. There's plenty of tweets from Barack Obama wishing people a Merry Christmas. This is like a total non-issue. Yeah. Every single year around this time, we constantly have to fight this quote-unquote war on Christmas, which couldn't be, this is like the biggest fake news story of the year and every year, because there really is no war on Christmas. This is just something conservatives make up to make themselves feel better so they have something to talk about in December.
Donald Trump is a horrible human being, period. I have another story about white people being garbage. The National Review, after reports came out that New York has had the lowest crime rates in almost 40 years, only 300 murders this year in a city that has 8 million people, a reporter on the National Review wrote an article saying that the murder rate has gone down in New York because black people are leaving.
Well, I mean, Heather McDonald's a hack, so what do you expect? I don't even know why we give her like more than 10 seconds of time even on this show. I mean, she manipulated the data to come to a false conclusion. End of story.
The thing...
No, hold on. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead. No, finish.
So the reason I brought it up, and you're 1,000% right, Ilyssa, I actually wrote something in response to some of her ignorance a couple of months ago about Black Lives Matter. But when you have publications like the National Review, which are supposed to be the responsible conservative group, and they put out something racist like that, why are we still continuing to look at them as a legitimate publication when they can put out stuff like that?
I mean, I don't look at them as a legitimate publication.
Of course you don't, Ilyssa.
I mean, like the broader conversation.
Listen, conservatives think that InfoWars and Breitbart are publications that have legitimacy. So
no, but even conservatives who don't listen, don't follow InfoWars, who don't follow Breitbart, who think Fox News is crazy, they consider the National Review to be a legitimate place. Right. And white people, conservative white people, and white people who follow these
And
publications.
some black people.
Yes, the 7 black people who think that white people are their masters and that read these publications take this stuff for gospel. And it's literally hate speech.
No, it literally is. It's wrong. It's false. It's propaganda, and it's basically just fueling like the Trump machine. So then, when he goes out and says we're going to build a wall, or like things that would hurt already marginalized people, they support it because they're like, well, they're dangerous. They're the ones that kill people. Like so it's really sad, and it's scary that the National Review and other publications would continue to put stuff out like this.
And by the way, the black population in New York City, while it has declined, it has not. That is not linked to the reason that violent crimes have gone down. And actually, white people are more responsible for violent crimes in New York. So thank you.
When white men are more responsible for violent crimes overall in this country, period.
Thank you very much. And they're also more likely to be sexual predators, Roy Moore. Anyways, guys.
Yeah, so moving on, tonight is the night that the ball will drop here in New York City. It's New York Times. We're in New York City, and it's New Year's Eve.
So many puns that could have been made on that.
All right, so
Balls are dropping tonight, guys.
No, but so I just wanted to mention, so Donald Trump, I think we touched on it earlier. He put out a tweet that, New Year's Eve is record-breaking. It's the coldest of the century. Because the century starts in 2000.
It's going to be 9 degrees tonight.
It's gonna be about 11, but it's gonna feel below 5 below 0.
I got project keys. It's gonna be about 95.
And everybody in Times Square is going to be from out of town because New Yorkers just don't do that. But go on.
No. So I just wanted to mention that, and I was extremely upset that Donald Trump would be so like I know we know he's dumb and he's ignorant, but for him to say climate change isn't real because of
but he's said it before, right?
You're right.
It was created by China to
this is not ignorance. This is propaganda. We really need to draw the line. No, I don't. I really don't.
You think he knows better? Alyssa, you think he knows better?
Yeah,
I
do.
agree. And I think that we've learned that this year, right? Is that I think we went into 2017 assuming that he's too incompetent to do anything, right?
Ooh.
That, if anything, he's just going to be too dumb to actually do anything effective. And that just hasn't been true. He's been able to do some really horrible things this year, right? I think that was in our denial phase, but he won't actually do anything. He'll just maintain the status quo because he can't. But he can. And so I think that Alyssa's totally right, that this is not him just saying, it can't be. He's playing to the minds of people who do believe that, but he's perpetuating this false narrative.
Yeah, and speaking of people being in denial, I think we have come to the point where we can stop being in denial about white people. White people voted for Trump because of racism and racial anxiety. That's what it was about. And if you had any second guesses about that, look at how they voted in the Georgia election. Look at how they voted in the Montana election. Look at how they voted in the Alabama election. In every single election this year, when white people could have made the responsible vote, they have voted for the most horrible person. Whether it was a guy running for Congress that body slammed a reporter, or the person who had been accused of being a child molester and got actually banned from malls because he was harassing teenagers. They have always voted for those people. And even though people are still making these useless think pieces where they interview white folks that voted for Trump and they still support Trump, some people still believe that there is hope. There is no hope. Leave your racist uncle alone.
No, I totally agree. So before we end this segment, I just wanted to end on some positive, funny news.
Thank you.
Yes, we need it.
Right. So there's a couple of things. Jay-Z finally put out that video with Beyonce,
it's
Family
half
Feud.
a video.
I only saw the clips yet.
I
haven't seen the whole thing, but I saw Blue Ivy's part and I melted. So shout out to Blue Ivy and the Carter family. Can't wait to see the rest of the twins. And also I saw a really interesting story about a woman who is suing a hospital over a nude photo taken while she was on an operating table. So apparently, she actually used to work at the hospital. And she's suing this hospital in Pennsylvania, alleging invasion of privacy and medical malpractice because she's saying that she discovered these photos after she returned to work after getting a hernia surgery last year. So now,
Selena, this is your happy note that you're leaving the...
Yeah.
What? Yeah. That's awful.
That's an awful story. There's nothing happy about that.
No, it's funny. It was a little ironic. I thought the irony there was funny.
I don't think it's funny at all.
It's awful.
No, not funny. Okay, all right. I should have just ended with Blue Ivy.
Right. Always end with Blue Ivy.
My bad, guys.
On a happy
Always
note, I got a
Blue
new
Ivy.
book I'm excited to read, guys. What are you guys excited about for 2018?
I'm going to get married.
Yeah.
That'll be exciting.
Yeah, it's overrated.
Nothing
Stanley-
at the moment.
Yeah, nothing at the moment either, Stanley. You put us on the
Actually,
spot.
I'm excited for something, but not something I can say on the air.
Me too. I'm excited for something that I also don't want to say on the
I
air as
wanna
well.
know.
Selena's going to God camp. All right, guys. We'll be
It's called Bible Camp for your
Yeah,
information.
you would know.
Yeah.
We'll be right back after this quick break, guys. So, guys, if you're wondering why Jaqi sounds so scared, well, first of all, this is Let Your Voice Be Heard on 90.3 FM WHCR, the voice of Harlem. And we are here talking about the biggest moments of the year, and we are giving out awards for all those different experiences. And as you guys know, this is an FCC-regulated show. So while the mics were off, I started cursing aggressively to this Future song I was playing, and Jaqi thought that I was cursing on air.
No, if he was cursing, I probably would have threw a pen at him like the last time I thought he dropped
Stabbed
the F.
him.
Yeah,
No, and I still apologize for that assault, Stanley. But
when you threw the pen
As
into
she
my
admits
eye.
to committing crimes
Yes.
on live radio.
She allegedly.
allegedly,
Such a good job that you're all doing.
I forgot Alyssa's a lawyer. Thank you for advising me not to say that again.
What,
All
other,
right, guys.
what other crimes have you committed, Selena? Tell
No,
us.
that's it.
Oh, that's it?
I don't commit crimes, guys.
She committed the crime of being just so beautiful. That's what it
Oh,
is.
Alyssa.
How long have you been lying, Ilyssa? So,
She's
guys.
a lawyer. She always lies. I'm just kidding. I'm just
I
kidding.
tell the truth.
That's why I hire her. So, guys, we've had lots of reasons to laugh. We've had lots of reason to be upset. We've had lots of reasons to be excited. But we've also had lots of setbacks and lots of things that confuse and upset us. And this conversation now is to be awarding some of those biggest moments of the year for moments where we really couldn't believe things were happening, for situations where we thought someone should be going to prison, but for some reason they're still walking around free, or even just for something that has really inspired us. 2017 is over, but it really has been defined by the year of Donald Trump, by the year of white supremacy, by the year of neo-Nazi, hell, by the year of Russia. Remember when Mitt Romney said Russia was our biggest threat in the 2012 presidential election debate, and we all laughed at him?
Wait, remember when the biggest scandal was when Mitt Romney put the dog on the roof?
Yep.
Yes,
And
that
now-
was hilarious.
This year has really been a big year of scandals, and it's been a big year of Russia. So now, with these next set of awards, we're going to try and contextualize that and try to pick some of our favorites or our least favorites for these awards. And the first one, which I think Ilyssa is going to be very excited about because I am, it is the Russiagate Award. Who in the Trump administration or the Republican Party or any party involved, honestly, deserves to go to jail the most over Russiagate? For those of you who do not know what Russiagate is, it is pretty much the people that, have been involved in helping to allegedly collude in a presidential election. And the nominees that we have here are Paul Manafort, Donald Trump Jr., George Papadopoulos, and Michael Flynn. Talk to me, people. Who do you got here?
Donald Trump.
All the above.
Well, all of the above. But Donald Trump, he's not going to. There's going to be a bunch of people that take a hit for him, and he's going to be fine. But he should go.
So that's your vote, Jaqi?
Yes.
Donald Trump. Alyssa?
I'm still going with all the above. Anybody who's culpable in committing a crime with respect to, rigging an election, possibly committing treason against the United States, if they are found guilty in a court of law by a jury of their peers or they plead guilty, then they should go to jail. Now, Donald Trump is a little more complicated because of the fact he's the president. The real way for that to be dealt with is actually through the political process, through an impeachment. It is very, very rare. In fact, probably highly unlikely that a sitting president would get indicted or would go to jail. The more likely scenario is that even if everybody else went to jail, Donald Trump would be subject to impeachment proceedings. So in all reality, I think the most likely to go to jail is probably everybody on that list who's not Donald Trump, although maybe not Papadopoulos because we know he's been cooperating. So really, out of all those, I think the most likely person to go to jail is Paul Manafort because it's clear he's not cooperating.
Right.
I mean, who deserves to go to jail? I think they all do, but, I don't foresee that happening.
So I would let Selena go first.
Thank you, Stanley.
You're welcome.
So I sort of agree with Alyssa there. I think they definitely all deserve to go to jail. I mean, in addition to in using Russia to help win an election, I mean, this definitely tainted our democracy, and it just sets a bad precedent internationally speaking. But I will say that I don't think anybody is going to go to jail, honestly. Like my, 2018 prediction is because Donald Trump has already talked about pardons. If somebody is incriminated and convicted, he said that he would definitely consider pardoning them. So that's what I would say.
Well, I mean, that depends. If they get charged under state law also, like, for example, some of these investigations are being done in conjunction with Eric Schneiderman's office in New York. So Donald Trump can only pardon people for federal crimes, not for state crimes. If you are charged by the state of New York for committing a crime in the state of New York, the only person who can pardon you is the governor. That said, we are getting a comment from Christine Curtis, and she says that it's a tie between Moore and Trump. Now, Moore obviously is not involved in Russiagate, but I think what she's implying there is that Moore should go to jail for his alleged pedophilia.
Yeah.
Great answer.
So I would have to say all the above plus Jared Kushner. And I'm maybe wishing on this, but Mike Pence, Paul Ryan, and Mitch McConnell. I'm hoping
Yeah, a
that
little
somehow,
wishful thinking there.
I'm hoping somehow that like Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell were involved in this, but at least Mike Pence. If those two can go to jail as well, I'd be very happy. And Jared Kushner, he's just a piece of crap. So go to prison. Be like your dad.
I mean, Jared Kushner should go to prison for lying on his stand in Form 86 multiple times. The fact that he still has security clearance is unbelievable. But it is believable because, it's 2017.
Year of our Lord, 2017.
Selena, I am shocked and appalled that you would give me this award to give out next, because we all know that I am not the kind of person that goes after black people that support Republicans or Donald Trump, because you know what? No one wins when the family feuds. But since you gave me this award to announce, I guess I will do so. The next award we're giving out is the Token Award. If you're not sure what that is the knuckle dragging, boot licking Uncle Toms that support white people who are racist. You can think of the Omarosas or the Ben Carsons or the Paris Denards or some people I won't say on here because they will be mad at me because we know them personally. But they support Donald Trump and they support white supremacy. They defend it and they uplift it. So the nominees we have for the biggest token award is Roy Moore's Jewish lawyer.
That was
That's right.
I just can't. For those that missed that, Roy Moore's wife said, fake news would have you believe that we don't care for Jews, but I'll let you know that we have a Jewish lawyer, which she said the night before the first night of Hanukkah.
I mean, that's literally like saying
proof that you're not racist.
Well, we have a Jewish friend,
yeah,
so can't be racist, right? Ugh.
I had a black guy in my house the other day. He was delivering the pizza, but Black Lives
not
Matter.
racist, yeah.
Well, anyways, guys, so we have Roy Moore's Jewish lawyer. We have Omarosa. We have Jared Kushner.
Hey,
what?
Jared Kushner. Yep.
Because Jared Kushner is bad for the Jews.
Yes, he is.
Well,
and
he's tokenized.
I am way more Jewish than Jared Kushner. He doesn't deserve
Seriously.
this.
But he definitely doesn't have a Hanukkah sweatshirt like you do.
I mean,
That's
I'm way
right.
more black than some of the other people on that list, too.
That's true. Alyssa, good point.
Touche. Ben Carson, the Blacks for Trump guy. So those of
Hold on. Can we describe the Blacks for Trump guy? Remember,
Can you describe him?
Remember at the rallies, there was that one black guy behind Donald Trump that held up the sign, Blacks for
Can
Trump.
I add somebody to this list?
And then SNL actually spoofed him like he was one of the biggest tokens for Donald Trump's campaigns that we've seen. And I think that he still shows up now and then.
Fun fact about him, he's also been convicted of murder and assault. He served some prison time for that, actually. And
then he converted to Republicanism.
Listen, I object to this. We don't like when people throw people we like under the bus because they've previously done something wrong. You do your time. You do your crime. You do your time.
I'll stop being a hypocrite in 2018.
But I want to add somebody to this list. Sheriff Clark.
You took King
yeah.
Koopa Uncle Tom.
He wins the token award for me.
Well, Alyssa just picked hers.
I'm going to go with Sheriff Clark because Sheriff Clark, I think Sheriff Clark is like the opposite of Rachel Dolezal or whatever her name is.
You get our black queen's name right, okay?
Sheriff Clark wakes up in the morning and he looks in the mirror and he sees a white man. And then he goes on Twitter and tweets things that a racist white man would tweet. He reminds me of Clayton Bigsby.
Christine Curtis, who's following on Facebook Live, says that the comment that Roy Moore's wife made about having a Jewish lawyer is worse than a comment about having a black friend saying that you're not racist, because she's basically saying that she says, I'm not racist, I give Jews money.
Oh, that's good.
That's a great point.
That is a great point.
I'm going to go, as a Jewish American, I'm going to go with Jared Kushner because I think that he is bad for the Jews. I think that he is upholding a presidency and an administration that is so clearly racist and complicit with anti-Semitism, and yet he's doing what a lot of very right-wing conservative Jews do, which is saying, okay, but at least Israel, at least we can get what we want in Israel, which is to recognize Jerusalem as the capital and, support the occupation of Palestine. And I think that he embarrasses me.
I know we have a comment, Ilyssa.
So Samantha Nephew says most token is Omarosa.
You know what? I'm going to just use that segue to give my awardee because I agree with you, Samantha. I definitely think it goes to Omarosa. I mean, we know that she allegedly got fired, but she told everyone that she resigned from the Trump administration. And she made press rounds and she was saying, like, I was the only black woman senior aide in the Trump administration. And she basically said, yeah, I was the token. I mean, it's not like her being there helped black people or helped women in any way. We actually took a few steps back, especially when it came to like reproductive rights and other things that the Trump administration has been talking about or actively trying to push. So my answer to that was Omarosa was definitely the biggest token.
You know what's ridiculous about Omarosa saying that she was the only black person there? So what a lot of black conservatives have said is that she was a person that was supposed to be getting new people in, and she pretty much threw away all their applications. They were like, all the names were being funneled to her because they work with the nonpartisan group to find like people of color that could work in the White House and that could work in the Republican Party. And she pretty much just like purged all those names because she didn't want them. And like Paris Bernard is someone who I do not respect at any moment because he's garbage. But he has a point. Omarosa looks really funny talking all this spice now when she was one of the main ones blocking things. But anyways, guys, let's move forward.
No, you didn't pick your answer, Stanley.
Before we do, what's with people hiding in the bushes over at the White House?
What?
It's like Sean Spicer, Omarosa. Right. Everybody's just like hiding in the bushes out there.
Pop the Molly. But my pick. You know what? I actually have a New Year's resolution, and it is to stop calling out black people that shuck and jive for white people. Not because they're not trash, but because really no one wins when the family feuds. That actually was a resolution of mine. Let's see how far I can get with that.
It's not 2018
It's not 2018 yet. Who's your token, Stanley?
Damn.
Oh, my God.
Oh, man. Who's the biggest token? Black Republicans. Because you're sitting here accepting this. Well, I can't even say that because I know plenty of black Republicans. Never mind. Because like they try to say they don't accept it, but then they still bang with these same people who are very obviously racist. I have a problem with it. So, black Republicans. Now, moving on, guys. The biggest Nazi or just racist of the year, as I like to call it.
Racist of the year.
And I think this one is self-explanatory. The white supremacist, racist, Nazi person of the year. We have Donald Trump. We have Steve Bannon. We have the Charlottesville protesters.
Can we add Roy Moore?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can. So, I guess
what's the one more you want to add?
What?
No, she said Roy Moore. She said Roy Moore, not one more.
I'll go for that, and then I'll throw it to Selena. So I'm adding Roy Moore because of his comments about black people would be better when we had slavery, and we should repeal all the amendments after number 10. Selena?
All right, guys. I probably should have went last, but I'll just take my time now. I think that my answer is a wild card choice. It's the alt-right, because the alt-right is the banner that fits like every other person in this category. Donald Trump, Steve Bannon, the Charlottesville protesters. I think that the alt-right, like under this banner, racist people, white supremacists, KKK members, they have unified online and even mobilized in the streets to promote and push their agenda. So I think that just the fact that we see a whole coalition of people, no matter what they call themselves or what term that they use, it's even like multi-generational. But the biggest Nazis, the biggest racists are definitely the alt-right for me.
So I guess I'll give you guys my answer.
Yeah.
White. So I'll give you guys some love on Facebook Live, actually, when I give you this answer. My biggest racist of the year is not on this list. It's white women. White women voted for Trump. White women voted for Roy Moore. En masse, white women have gone out of. We always talk about how trash white men are, and white men are generally trash. But white women have gone out of their way to not just vote for white supremacy, but vote against their own interests to uphold white supremacy. Right. When you're supporting an alleged child molester so that he can continue to push racist policies and policies that will hurt you, you are the biggest racist. White women are also much smarter than white men, which is not saying much because white men are pretty freaking stupid, but white women continue to vote. So white women, you're wild trash and you're wild racist.
What was the percentage of white women, do you know off the top of your head, that voted for Roy Moore?
65%.
That's
so
awful.
We'll say 65% of white women fall in that category generally because that's a good microcosm for the rest of the country.
Can I just so Samantha nephew says in response, yo Stanley with like 5 million wives.
This is why we don't have no sponsors.
That was essentially like white people was my answer to this, right? Like I think that you're totally right that people, but I think you made a really good argument that white women specifically in the Doug Jones, Roy Moore race were willing to put aside their own rights as women and to ignore everything that came out of that election, everything that we heard about Roy Moore, to uphold white supremacy. And so that is the most racist thing.
Can I just say one more thing about that? It's because white women don't see solidarity with other women of color. They only see solidarity for their own interest, and their interest is white supremacy because it helps them.
Right. No, I think that's a fair comment. Obviously they're it's like we need to say this to clarify for some people that like we don't mean all people. We obviously,
but I don't even think it's worth. I don't think it's worth getting into like not all white people and not all women.
Right, and that's exactly what I was just going to say.
Yeah.
But Jaqi said it for me. So moving on, Stanley, my mom says she likes your shirt.
Thank you, Mom. Anyways, guys, the next one is the biggest political upset of the year. We had a lot of them. We're not going to talk about Donald Trump, even though that's still the biggest upset of my life.
Of your lifetime.
But that was of
seriously.
2016.
When I tell you, there was a lot of alcohol and unmentioned things that I used day after Election Day. Anyways, guys, biggest political upset of 2017, the Doug Jones victory in Alabama, the Ralph Northam victory in Virginia, the Danica Rome victory in somewhere, and the blue wave of the November election. Those are the options that we have. If you have something else that you want to mention, feel free to do so. And also, guys, if you want to call in with a question or a comment, actually don't do that. Just call in with your vote. You can give us a call at 212-650-6903. Again, that is 212-650-6903. And Facebook Live, you guys have been super active. Please keep it up. We're loving the comments we're getting from you. So let's start with Ilyssa, because we haven't started with you in a while. What do you think was the biggest political upset this year?
I think the biggest political upset this year was Doug Jones. When I look at the other people on the list, Ralph Northam, obviously he won in Virginia, but Virginia is a purple state. It swings back and forth. The previous governor was a Democrat, Terry McAuliffe. And so I don't really think, I think it was good that he won, but I don't think that was a big upset. Danica Rome is a great example of somebody who also put in the work and won. And I absolutely love Danica Rome, and I think she's going to make a great politician in Virginia. But, like in this day and age, I don't think we should be so shocked that a trans person could win for office. She keeps saying, will everybody stop referring to me as trans politician says we should build the roads or whatever. And she's like, okay, I'm just a politician trying to get things done. This is 2017, despite the fact that Republicans would like to live in the year 1950. It is not the year 1950. We are going to move into the future, whether they like it or not. And even amongst and amidst the setbacks that we've had. And so I don't think it's that much of an upset that somebody that doesn't fit into the quote unquote mainstream two genders, like in the way that conservatives would like somebody to, and they win an election, that they are it is an upset. Now, getting to the Doug Jones thing, because I know we have some time, that to me is a big upset because, number one, it's Alabama. Democrats have not won a seat in Alabama since 1992, and it is very, very difficult for Democrats to win a seat in Alabama, generally, more likely in the House because of gerrymandering, which doesn't exist in terms of a Senate race. But also, I was very, very highly convinced that people were going to turn out and vote for Roy Moore, despite the allegations, and I was convinced that Roy Moore was going to win. So when Roy Moore did not win that race, I was shocked in a good way, and that's why I think that is the biggest political upset of 2017.
I actually want to take a comment from Samantha Nephew because I think this is something that we
Yeah.
don't think about because we're in New York City. But in Buffalo, there was a huge political upset, and that was actually the unseating of a racist school board member there in Buffalo by the name of Carl Palladino. Carl Palladino is a huge Trump supporter.
He tried to run
openly
for governor.
racist, tried to run for
What
governor.
did he say about
got
Michelle
washed.
Obama?
He called Michelle Obama a gorilla and said he wanted to dismantle the Buffalo public schools. The state unseated him, and there was a huge organizing effort around that. So I do want to congratulate all the organizers in Buffalo who did that great work because Buffalo is wild racist. There's nothing more racist than Buffalo than America. So, but Jaqi, what's your answer for biggest political upset?
I would say Doug Jones's victory. I mean, that was shocking to me. Following that race so closely and seeing the polls coming out of Alabama, it did not seem like it was possible. Despite, I mean, it shouldn't be as shocking as it was, right? Because you have Roy Moore, a candidate who allegedly slept and assaulted and molested young girls, right? And so you would think that this wouldn't be such a contentious race, but obviously because he's the Republican candidate in a very, very, very conservative state, he was going to be the clear winner. And so it was amazing to see Doug Jones win, even though it was by such a slight margin. Like, I know, I think the margin ended up being like 1.5%.
Yeah.
But when they first declared victory, it was like 0.8%. And a comedian that I really like tweeted, if we can beat a child molester by 0.8%, we can do anything, which is kind of how I felt. I mean, I was very happy to see that he won, but obviously just sort of like dismayed at the entire race itself.
Yeah, so just real quick before I give my answer, I want to give a couple more comments. Sorry, Selena, you want to give your answer? No.
I'll wait for the comments, Stanley.
So Oriana says, Long Island District 9 special election, Christine Pellegrino. This was actually a huge victory because even though the demographics of Long Island skew more so towards people of color now, it is deeply run by white people and Republicans. And Christina Pellegrino won a seat that had been previously held up by a strong Republican person. But Long Island is shifting in power for state Senate elections and hopefully soon congressional election seats as well. Selena?
Yeah, so my answer would be the blue wave that swept through our country during November's election. Ilyssa already mentioned Danica Rome, who won in Massachusetts. She actually beat an openly homophobic Republican incumbent, so that was huge. This is the same election where in Hoboken, New Jersey, they elected their first Sikh mayor. For the first time in Seattle, a lesbian was elected, and there were also a number of African-American leaders who made history in November. For instance, in Charlotte, they elected the first black woman. Very first black transgender woman was also elected to public office in Minneapolis. Let me keep going. Minnesota also voted for their first black mayor.
What else?
The first black lieutenant governor of Virginia was elected in 3 decades. The first black and openly gay mayor of Bridgeport, Pennsylvania was elected. And the list really does go on and on because a number of progressives, not only did they win, but we sort of took our country back. And it brings us back. Well, look, hear me out. Because in 2016, like 1 year prior, in November 2016, we all felt so disheartened when Trump won the White House. And then we entered into a year where Republicans held a majority in Congress, both branches, the Senate and the House. So I feel like everyone was mobilized and motivated to go to the polls in November 2017 to say, like, you know what? We're here. We have a voice and we're going to make it be heard and you're going to listen to us. So that to me, it was almost revolutionary because it gave me hope and it gave a lot of people on the left hope.
That was a great closing, Selena. Too bad we had 20 more minutes left. So guys, we're going on a quick break.
And then you're going to give your answer, right,
Stanley? When we come back, I will definitely give my answer and a couple of other thoughts in response to some great things people said in here. This is Let Your Voice Be Heard, and this is music you won't hear if you're on Facebook Live.
I recognize you looking at me for the pay cut, but how much I be looking at you from the face down.
Hey, we are back on Let Your Voice Be Heard. on 90.3 FM WHCR, the voice of Harlem. If you are just tuning in, welcome to Facebook Live. If you're not on Facebook Live, welcome to the FM frequency. If you don't have a radio, welcome to Ustream. If you're not listening, what up, podcast? This is Stanley Fritz. I'm here with Selena Hill, Ilyssa Fuchs, and of course the immaculately lame Jaqi Cohen. Hi, Mom and Dad. Hi, Ben. I love you so much. Also, shout out to Marilyn, who may or may not be listening if she has not gotten bored or fallen asleep
I just want
already.
to say shout out to the fact that nobody's selling a couch on our live stream today.
Yet. There's still time.
That happened. We did a show where I was not there, of course, because, I was too lit to quit. But someone was trying to sell a couch on
it was
our
like,
page.
so it was
So
alt-right
funny.
trolls that found us, and instead of basically making legitimate comments on our feed about, their positions, which we would have read even if we disagreed with them, they decided they were going to interrupt our comment chain by trying to sell a couch, like auction one off, which was sort of a joke. But in turn, what happened was they drove more people to watching our show. So,
That's so
thank you,
funny.
trolls.
Trolls, that's what engagement does, stupid trolls. But anyways, guys, we're having a great conversation, giving awards for biggest moments, biggest political upsets, biggest racists, biggest Nazis, biggest anything you can imagine. And when we went on break, we were just wrapping up the biggest political upset, and it was my turn to talk about my biggest political upset. And I wanted to respond to something that Ilyssa said about Danica Rome, where it should not be surprising that someone won because, and her being transgender should not be the big part of the story. I'm kind of paraphrasing. And while I agree with a lot of what you said, I do think it is important, and I don't think you were against this, but I do think it is important that we uplift those kind of stories when we talk about this, because transgender people are one of the most underrepresented, undervalued, abused, and disrespected groups in our country, and they also have higher death rates, they have higher suicide rates, all the bad things. They're right up there with black people. And if you're trans and you're black, it's even worse. So it's really important that we uplift their voices, uplift their stories, and talk about them, even with respect. But it's really important to do that. So I want to say that. Shifting gears,
Wait, so is that your answer?
Yes, Stanley, please.
No, that was I'm trying to get to the answer, guys.
Oh, sorry.
You said shifting gears.
Yo, you see this, guys? You see the microaggressions in here?
Yes.
Selena.
Yes.
So-
It's here. It's all here.
Well, Selena's a microaggression because she's 4'7". But anyways, guys.
No, can I just, for the record, I'm 5 feet. Thank you.
She's taller than I am.
Yes, Stanley.
You're rude, Stanley.
Duh.
Hater.
And you know what? 2 weeks ago, it was Short People's Appreciation Day, so shout out to us.
Yeah, but
Shout out to my
it's 2
haters
weeks-
and losers.
it's 2 weeks later, which means you guys don't matter anymore.
It's Tall People's Day.
Yeah, that's right. The talls will rule. Why don't you
Yes.
All heights matter?
No, never. Why don't you get that jar from the second shelf? Alyssa?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Oh, that was a low blow.
Yeah, because you're
It
low.
was a high blow. Yeah.
No, literally, it was a low blow.
Up top, Jaqi. Up top.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sorry, short people. But anyways,
Yeah.
guys, my biggest political upset is Doug Jones. Let me explain. It should not be an upset. Roy Moore
right.
was an alleged child molester, an open racist, someone who got kicked off of the courts twice, someone who tried to put the 10 Commandments up on federal property, someone who, even by Republican standards, was an idiot that no one respected. And he still should have won that race, because Alabama is about as backwards as it can get when it comes to white people voting against their interest. He still should have won that race. And if it wasn't for a mammoth turnout from black people, shout out to the black women, 98% of them that did the right thing, despite 65% of white women getting crazy as usual. If that didn't happen, Roy Moore is in the Senate. That is still a huge upset. And it's only 1.5% win. And Alabama, which is a southern state, which loves screwing with votes and voters, did not find a way to finagle a victory for Roy Moore. It is still a huge upset.
So, yeah, shout out to Steve Bannon on that one.
Yeah, right? My goodness. Steve Bannon, you are just brilliant. So now, guys, I want to jump gears and ask a question that was asked in our comment section on Facebook Live. If you're on Facebook Live, please leave questions or comments. We will get to you unless we don't. And also, if you're on the phone, you're listening, give us a call at 212-650-6903. Again, that is 212-650-6903. By the way, I just noticed Selena's shirt matches with the WHCR post in the background. Maybe they're related.
Cool.
So if you're on Facebook Live, you can see that.
Cool story.
Anyways, guys, Bianca Marley goes, what's something that the commander did this year that was positive? Well, when Barack Obama put out a whole bunch of young people to speak about science and politics in his first public event since he had left the White House, that was pretty inspiring. That was a good thing. What about you guys?
Isn't the question, what did Donald Trump do?
No, the commander. That's Donald Trump ain't my president.
Stanley, you just confused the mess out of everyone.
Well, that's your president.
Seriously, can you answer the question?
I
Is there
just
anything
did.
that Donald Trump did that was positive.
Is he still president?
Yes.
No.
Okay, next.
Fair enough answer.
I actually have an answer for that. Thank you for the question, Bianca. If I had to give an answer, the only thing that Donald Trump did that was positive, it happened inadvertently. It was the fact that he has forced America to finally talk about race relations from a more truthful perspective. Like, you cannot deny that white supremacists marched through North Carolina holding tiki torches and screaming out things like Jews will not replace us. And then when Donald Trump was like, you know what, I condone this because there were very fine people on both sides, it finally proved what we all knew and felt. And he said it himself. Look, I'm racist, and I like the fact that racists support me because they voted me in office. And what? And then we responded. We went to the polls in November of 2017, and we're going to be mobilized in 2018, and we're going to take this country back. So thank you, Donald Trump, for showing us how ugly and racist America really is.
Yeah, you've said that on the show many times, that you prefer your racists to be presented, I think you said on a platter, right? Like, you want to know who the racists are. And I think that something that's happened this year is that the white supremacist racists in this country have literally had the hoods pulled off of them, right? And we have seen their faces and know who they are and know how many there are among us.
I have a good answer for this. I finally figured it out. So one good thing that Donald Trump did this year was he was crazy on Twitter and may have admitted to colluding with Russia on Twitter in his craziness multiple times. So thank you, Donald Trump, for not understanding that you're supposed to have some couth when you're the president of the United States, and you're not supposed to go on Twitter all the time and just tweet out everything that is coming out of your head. So, thanks, Donald Trump, for that, for being very, very so bad at your job that you just, spill your guts on Twitter all the time and possibly, admit to crimes.
I just want to trigger you guys real quick. Harold Booker Jr. says, the market is soaring. I don't give Trump all the credit, but he's been at the helm this year.
I mean, I don't give
the stock
Trump
market
any credit for that because most of that stuff happened based on the policies that were put into place by Barack Obama prior to Donald Trump actually coming into office. You really have to wait a year out to see how the market's going to affect it. And so the way I look at it is why don't we table that for a year and see what happens? Because if the market crashes next year, that's going to be based on the policies that Donald Trump put into place, as far as I'm concerned.
What policies? Jaqi, you want to answer the question?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about this on the show before, that it can be perceived that one good thing that's come out of this year and this administration is the huge resistance that we've seen. But I'm not going to give Donald Trump credit for that, for the protesters. Right? I'm going to give organizers credit for bringing people out and mobilizing people to have a voice and to resist the administration. I don't think that there's anything that he's done that has been positive for any of us. Maybe for super, super rich people, they can list a whole slew of things that Donald Trump has done to benefit them. But for the rest of us, there's nothing.
Yeah.
Bubkis.
I like
Bubkis, it's Yiddish for nothing.
Mashugana. What does that mean?
Crazy.
It's crazy.
Oh, so that's what that commercial's about. You don't use car miles?
I'll tell you how to use it in a sentence. Donald Trump is Mashugana.
Yeah.
Donald Trump is Mashugana.
Yeah.
So, guys, it's up to the next question, the resistor of the year. This is my favorite question because it gives you a chance to really sit back and think about the movements, the people, the moments that really inspired you. Even if the resisting was done on the side of in favor of Republicans. If it is, don't talk to me about it because I'm probably going to say some mean things to you. But anyways, guys, the people we have as resistors of the year, and you can come up with your own as well, is A, Elizabeth Warren, B, Colin Kaepernick, C, Auntie Maxine Waters, and D, Women's. The Women's. So I want to start this one off with, I'm going to look Selena deep in her eyes and pick Jaqi.
No, that wasn't fair.
Go ahead, Selena.
Thank you. All right, so my resistor of the year is actually going to be a wild card choice. I would have to say, and it was a tough one because I was really voting for Colin. Honestly, Colin Kaepernick, I think, he almost got the Time Cover of the Year award. But women got it. But I think the resistor of the year are black women. Reason being, as mentioned earlier in the show, and I think it was by one of our commenters, black women voted overwhelmingly for Hillary Clinton in the 2016 election. But this year in 2017, they show that they are one of the strongest voting blocs of the Democratic Party, that they are the heart and soul of Democrats. Black women, we are the ones that stopped a Trump-backed candidate from winning the governor's race in Virginia. We are the ones that prevented an alleged child molester and sexual predator from becoming a senator in Alabama. And I feel like we're the ones that really hold like this country accountable. Like, you know, we finally have a voice. We have our platforms. We use social media. We start trends. Cardi B. I mean, black women are the resistors of 2017. That's who I give the award to.
That's a pretty good answer, Ilyssa.
So yeah, I mean, listen, I think that's a great answer. I'm actually going to go also with a wild card choice, and which is, you know, as I already explained at the beginning of the show, I think that women did an excellent job of kicking off the resistance movement, and I absolutely think that women were influential in getting it all started. But I am going to go with the disabled protesters that went to the Capitol building and protested the repeal of the Affordable Care Act. These are people that were literally in wheelchairs. Some of them had extremely debilitating diseases. Some of them really needed to be at home on bed rest. Some of them were severely disabled. And yet they nonetheless mobilized. And not only did they mobilize, they literally mobilized, refused to leave, engaged in acts of civil disobedience, and had Capitol Police literally handcuff them and drag them out, and in some cases lift them up out of their wheelchairs. These are people that may not have been fully physically abled, but nonetheless went out there and put their bodies on the line in order to prevent the repeal of the Affordable Care Act. And guess what? The Affordable Care Act, although, you know, yes, there was parts of it repealed through the individual mandate, through the tax bill, at the end of the day, they were able to convince enough people not to vote for the full repeal of the ACA through the fact that they put their bodies on the line at the Capitol building and got arrested. And so I think they are the biggest resistors of the year.
Yeah, I think that's a great choice, too. I'm going to also go with a wild card, and I'm going to say immigrants, and specifically undocumented immigrants who have had to face day to day this growing tide of xenophobic not just sentiment in this country, but ICE, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, has been totally empowered to go around acting like the Gestapo, ripping apart families, going into people's homes and tearing them out and deporting them. And I think that, you know, the fact that you see so many immigrants, so many undocumented immigrants still standing up and putting themselves at such risk of arrest, of deportation, of much worse, just as fight back against this administration. I mean, what they're putting at risk in order to, you know, change things in this country is more than certainly what I'm putting at risk, right? And I think what a lot of us are. I mean, they are literally putting their lives on the line, and I'm very grateful to many of the undocumented activists who are standing up in this country right now.
Unless you want to read a comment from Facebook Live?
No, I just want to say I think that's a great answer. They really do have a lot to lose. So Christine Curtis says she just wanted to point out that black women created the Me Too hashtag. I think that was in response to Selena's comment regarding that black women would win Resistor of the Year for her.
And Ebony Smalls also mentioned that she thought that, Harold Booker mentioned that he thought Angela Rye was the Resistor of the Year. You know, this was a really hard one for me to answer because all these groups inspired me in different ways. And I guess I'm just going to cop out since you guys listed a lot of the things and people that I would want to mention. I actually want to give the Resistor of the Year award as a wild card as well to journalists. And I'm not talking about New York Times or Washington Post, who have done a great job, except for when they're doing a horrible job by covering white people that voted for Trump last year and still support him. I don't care about that. I'm talking about publications like Think Progress. I'm talking about The Root. I'm talking about the publications like The Establishment. I'm talking about publications like B Media.
Or Gothamist and DNA Info, who literally lost their jobs because they voted to unionize.
Exactly. I'm talking about publications like that. Hell, even the Huffington Post. I'm talking about black publications that are sharing stories like Race Baiters now. I'm talking about those kind of publications that are not necessarily in the mainstream, but they are sharing stories. Think Progress got a bevy of emails from Breitbart and pretty much pushed Robert Mercer out of control from that and showed Milo Yiannopoulos, whatever his name is, for what he was.
Good.
All these independent media sources and guys these media sources, they do not have the kind of money that the CNN or New York Times or even the Daily News has. They do not. They rely on people like you and me. And you know what? Because I'm appreciative of the work that they do, I recently just started giving Think Progress $5 a month because like they really are supported by money like that, not by ads. And in that spirit, I would ask you guys to consider doing the same thing. If you have a couple of extra dollars, please support local smaller media outlets. Hell, support us because we're trying to do the same thing. And I'll make sure we post our Patreon link inside there. But if you don't want to support Let Your Voice Be Heard, think about the establishment. Think about B Media. It's BITC, etc. Media. Think about feminist voices, women's voices. Think about all these media outlets and support them any way you can because they need you. So that is what we had for those questions over there, guys. So closing in on this, at least this portion of the show, what do you guys, what do you guys like, this is a rhetorical question, obviously, but like, what do you guys think, like, we can learn from this? And this is not a question you have to answer now, but it's something you should think about because this has been a crazy year, for lack of better words. What could possibly be happening next? So we're going to go on a quick break, but Selena, could you just read a couple of comments from Facebook Live while I cue up the songs?
Sure. So, and I think Ilyssa's Facebook Live feed is a little quicker than mine, but correct me if I'm wrong. Some of the latest ones that I have, did we read Deborah Rothman?
That's my mom.
Right.
So my mom said that I'm a girl after her own heart.
Wow.
My uncle is disabled, and my mom really does a lot of work in terms of disability rights. So she liked the fact that I picked the disabled protesters.
I actually have something I would want to add to Resistors of the Year. I think that there were a lot of young people that ran for office that we saw win.
That's a good
elected,
one as well.
like the Andrea Jenkins and Danica Romes, and there were young people, women of color, trans women, who sought, to make a difference and put themselves on the line and actually, did the dang thing and ran for election and won. So
Shout
I
out
think
to
they
them.
did a great job.
Yep.
All right, guys, so we're going on a quick break. When we come back, we got some news for you.
Quick release the cash, watch it fall slowly.
And we are back. This is Let Your Voice Be Heard right here on WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem. Shout out to all you guys who have been listening and chiming in via Facebook Live. We appreciate your comments, and we definitely appreciate you guys for joining us here on this Sunday morning, well, now Sunday afternoon, the last of 2017. So we had a great show. We gave out awards. We picked our favorite tokens. We picked our biggest political upsets and the biggest moments in science. We even picked the Resistor of the Year. Now, I'm just going to give the panel some time to give final thoughts on 2017. Who wants to go first?
I can go. So 2017, it was the worst of times. It was the worst of times. But I think, in all seriousness, I think it was a really hard year. I like I mentioned earlier in this show, I think that a lot of people went into 2017 assuming that Trump would be an ineffective president. And, he was just sort of careless. And while that is true, he's certainly careless. And, I would not consider him to be a very smart man. I think he has been effective in putting forth a lot of the policies that he campaigned on, certainly anti-immigration reform, his tax plan that is now going into effect. He's been working very hard. Obviously, he wasn't successful in the way that he thought that he would be, but he's been working very hard to repeal Obamacare. It was a really stressful year for many of us and really hard. But I think that going into 2018, we'll talk about predictions in a minute. I'm hopeful. I think that we can use a lot of what we've learned in 2017 in our favor in this next year. But yeah, this was a tough year, and I'm proud of all of us for getting through it.
Yeah, I agree. It definitely was a tough year, but I think the one thing that I'm taking out of it is the ability to try and have hope. When the year started and the inauguration and Donald Trump gave that just like abhorrent, speech.
American carnage.
Yeah, American.
Batman speech.
And it's just like we felt like we were just starting off on such a bleak note. And yet throughout the year, there has been multiple reasons to have found hope, from the number of women that turned out for the Women's March, from the fact that those women were able to use that protest as a catalyst for so many other protests. And eventually all of that culminated in the already blue wave that we started to see coming in the November 2017 elections, and the fact that we saw a lot of black women mobilizing, and people on the left mobilizing not only at protests but mobilizing to vote. And so that left me feeling, at least now at the end of the year, being that today is the last day of the year, having some hope leading into the next year that we are going to continue to fight and resist these things that are going on.
Man, I started in 2017 very angry. Everyone's nodding aggressively.
Yep.
Yeah, you did.
You did.
I'm not less angry. And I still believe a lot of the stuff that I said, minus some of the minus 99% of the personal insults that I threw at people, not named Donald Trump or Republican Party. But I feel re-energized, and I think a big reason for that is for people, because it was very easy to be disappointed with just people in general after this past presidential election, particularly white people who really just showed out. And you start getting into a space where, you think like, well, you know what, maybe we just don't need to even try anymore. And I've been re-inspired, and I think some of that a lot of that pessimism and hurt has washed away with optimism and hope. And so I'm really excited about 2018 and standing shoulder to shoulder with black women, with white women, with white men, and Muslim people, just a broad coalition of people who care about justice and love and fighting for what's right and winning. And then also, you guys probably don't know this, but this has been our best year as a podcast as far as people listening to the show, people engaging with the show. And I really appreciate all you guys who tune in every Sunday. I appreciate even more the people who tune in on podcasts afterwards, and I appreciate anyone who's giving to us in the future. $5 a month, guys. Help us stay alive.
Thank you for that plug, Stanley. Final thoughts really quickly on 2017. I definitely echo that sentiment of hope. We started off very disheartened. Honestly, I was almost bleakly optimistic, because I was like, we don't know what Donald Trump's going to do. He said all these radical things. He's not actually going to try to push it. He's not actually going to try to pass this, but he has been trying. But we've been resisting. So, again, just shout out to the organizers, the activists, people who are concerned, people who listen to even let your voice be heard, and who have been taking a stance against some of the injustices, legislation and rhetoric that hurt us, especially those who are most disenfranchised in our country. Next question, really quickly. Everyone has 30 seconds to answer. What are your 2018 predictions, Ilyssa?
All right. Mueller time is going to happen. There's going to be something that comes out of the Mueller investigation that is either going to exonerate Donald Trump completely, which I highly doubt, or is going to possibly cause impeachment proceedings. But my other big prediction for 2018, aside from what may or may not come out of the Mueller investigation, because I don't know, and that is only really speculative, the one thing I can say that I don't think is speculative is there is going to be a huge blue wave like Donald Trump has never, ever, ever seen. It's going to be so huge. It's going to be the hugest thing that happens in all of 2018. And Democrats are going to run the table, and they're at least going to take back the Senate. They might even take back the House. They're going to start to take back governorships, and we're going to start to see the pendulum shift back the other direction.
So I don't know that this is as much of to jump off of that. I am hopeful that happens, but I think that the Democratic Party needs to make a lot of changes in its rhetoric before that happens, because right now their campaign strategy is to say, well, at least we're not them. At least we're not a child molester. At least we're not a guy that says grab her by the what. And so you should vote for us. So I think that the Democratic Party needs to shift its way of campaigning to people to win, and then it should happen.
Stanley, 2018 prediction?
A black woman is going to run for president, and I'm probably going to support her.
Good.
In 2018?
Yep.
I would agree to that, guys. I agree. I'm just going to wrap things up with a strong call to action. Guys, we can continue to resist in 2018. There is nothing I look forward to more than that midterm election next November. We're heading to the polls, and we're going to vote in progressives. We're going to vote in transgender people. We're going to vote in black women, white progressive, our allies. We're going to do it, and we're going to show Donald Trump what this country is all about. So get ready to vote. And also, guys, if you would like like to continue to support Let Your Voice Be Heard in 2018, please do so on our Patreon account. That is patreon.com/letyourvoicebeheard. Also, big news, very exciting announcement.
Yay.
Starting in 2018, January 7th, 2018, we're moving from 2 hours to 1 hour. So we will just be recording a 1 hour live show right here on WHCR 90.3 FM from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. That's Eastern time, guys. So 1 hour, we're going to pack everything in. We're not going to suck up too much more of your Sundays anymore, guys. So definitely continue to support us. We'll be back, God willing, next year right here, WHCR. Thank you so much for the support, and we'll see you in the new year.